Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is exactly 12 noon. It's another Friday Town Hall Academy from the Remarkable Results Radio podcast. And I'm so happy to have someone here from Langley, British Columbia, Brentwood, Tennessee, and Westmont, Illinois. Tristan, right?
Yeah.
Westmont, Illinois.
Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Glad to have you all here. We're going to discuss a very interesting subject today, 12 tips on holding great meetings. And we either hold too many, we don't hold enough, or if we hold good meetings, we hold meetings, they may not be good meetings. And we're here to discuss how to have really good meetings. Listen, I want to thank Jasper Engines for sponsoring the podcast. At Jasper Engines and Transmissions, quality and customer service is their number one goal. Their associates take pride in their work, and it shows in the quality drivetrain products they produce. Their quality and customer service has kept them growing for 75 years. Thank you, Jasper. Hey, I want to introduce my fabulous panel here today. Kim Auernheimer is the co-owner of CS Automotive in Brentwood, Tennessee. Ladies first. CS Automotive started in a back warehouse in 2006. Now they call a 6,400 square foot 10-bay shop home. Brentwood, upscale community, right, Kim?
Yes, sir.
Well, prior to joining her husband, Rob, in the business, Kim had a career in real estate. In July of 2011, she stepped out from the background and joined her husband in the venture, creating an industry-leading standout shop on a full-time basis. And you and I did a panel in Nashville this past year, this past spring. Great to have you. Kim and I, one-on-one in episode 113 of the podcast. Meet Tristan Realbert, the owner of Real Auto House Automotive in Westmont, Illinois. He is an ASEL 1C1 X1. What's X1?
Undercar specialist.
Got it.
Yeah.
Master certified. He's a master certified technician and an AMI AAM grad. He got his start helping his father service cars in the mobile setting. He got his AAS in automotive technology from a local college. And Tristan started his business at 19 years old, and he never looked back. We did a one-on-one episode in 179, and he also came on the 200 retrospective. It was great to have you on that. And Scott Waddle opened Precision Auto Service in Langley, British Columbia in 1997. What's that, about 18 years ago now? 20. That's right, 20. And it wasn't long until he realized that running a business was absolutely, positively nothing like fixing cars. He started taking business management courses at a regular pace, and the rest is history. Their tagline at Precision is, "Where we worry about your car so you don't have to." They believe it is their responsibility to keep their clients safe and reliable on the road. Scott is building a brand new facility and has been on the podcast in episode 141. And I wish you could tell me and show me pictures of this beautiful new place, but you can't yet.
Not yet.
All right. All right. Well, I can't wait. Now, look, we're going to talk about having great meetings. You know, when I worked in corporate America, we had meetings just to have meetings. And in some shops today, they have scrums every day. They have meetings weekly. They have monthly meetings. And I guess we started to think about the subject. We started to think about, well, how can we make what we do in our industry even better, and take some great advice from our panel, and of course from all of our listeners that are going to be on with us for Facebook this weekend. And don't forget, we repurposed the video and the podcast by Wednesday of next week. Now, there was a great book written by Pat Lencioni, and it was called Death by Meetings. And it's a great read. I read it a bunch of years ago to try to improve what I did for doing meetings. And you know, what I learned from the book was never intend to waste people's time, always intend to have positive results, and always engage your team to participate. It's not always a one-way thing in meetings. So, hey, gang, thanks for all your great talking points. Let's start. Tristan, I'm going to go right to you. What type of meetings do you need to have? And what about having a great purpose for every meeting?
I think, well, there's different type of meetings. You have your daily, weekly, monthly meetings, right? And you have different agendas for those meetings. But I think the most important factor in holding a great meeting happens before the meeting even starts. Participants must want to be present to the meeting, right? They must have buy-in to go to these meetings. It will not be as effective if they don't even want to be there, if there's something that they just have to go to because the boss said so, right? So I think that's the most important part, is that everyone attending must know what they need, why they need to attend, and how much important their presence is in that meeting.
So
right?
do you ever
I think that happens.
Got it. Do you ever go over the numbers with your team, and do they understand that?
Oh yeah, we do. So our daily meetings, we discuss the numbers from yesterday, right? Weekly meetings, we discuss numbers and goals and achievements for the week. And then monthly meetings, we discuss numbers and overall for the whole month.
Do you have a business coach?
I do. Mm-hmm.
All of you do, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, are you with Elite?
That's right.
And Kim, who are you with?
Cecil Bullard, Smart Groups and Institute. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So, it almost seems like every entrepreneur service professional that I have known that has a coach always seems to implement meetings. Scott, did that become after you and Jim Murphy worked together?
I don't think it did, actually. Not that I don't want to give Jim credit for lots, but I mean, what really did it for me is we had a staff member, just kind of a long-term staff member in our first 10 years, just kind of blow up one day and just go over all this stuff that he thought was wrong, and many points were certainly correct, and then he ended up leaving. And what I learned from that was that we went way too long without talking, and from that point on, I said, we're going to have meetings every week. I eventually switched them to every second week. But the meeting every second week keeps us from ever having something that went too long and somebody can have a blow up about. And that's what made me start. And from there, it just kept on going.
So I'm hearing the word communication as like the foundation of what meetings are about. Kim, same for you?
Absolutely. And that was one of the first things that was recommended that we do, is start communicating and open up the communication with our employees. And to my surprise, the response back from the staff was, it's about time. It's about time we had some consistency in communication. And it was actually more wanted by the staff than it was from us, because that just meant one more thing that needed to be done and such. But the technicians and the staff were really, really wanting that form of communication and that open line.
Okay, so let's talk about our tip number 2, and we're gonna kind of fly through 12, maybe even a bonus tip at the end, maybe 13. And so our tip number 1 is to have a meeting purpose and to set goals. And Tristan, I think as you said, we could talk training, goals, financial, and in general. Now, number 2 we have down is have an agenda. And Kim, let me ask you about that. Do you actually post a real live agenda, or is it something when I come to a meeting at your place, I know what we're going to discuss every time?
We actually have a written agenda, and on that agenda is the space for the note taker. It lists the topic that we're going to discuss, who's going to present it, and the area for the notes. That agenda is consistent and we kind of set it up. We have two weekly meetings. One on Mondays is the management meeting, which includes the service advisor, the lead tech, Rob, myself, the 2 owners, and our customer service representative. So we have one agenda for that meeting. We have a separate one for our staff Wednesday lunch meeting. So we have two agendas, and they are consistent. However, there's time. We purposely leave time to add items to the agenda that need to be addressed.
If I was coming to one of your meetings, Kim, and I knew that I needed to talk, do you ever ask me for specifics, and do I need to prepare for that, or do you want to hear the same thing from me every week?
Well, for instance, one of our topics is tools and equipment. So we have our lead tech is assigned to that particular item or that topic. He's going to bring forward information, special equipment needs, fixes, repairs, anything that might need to happen. But also the staff knows that if there's anything with tools and equipment that need to be addressed, they need to take that to Tanner, because Tanner's assigned to that topic every week. And so, and so we had whoever is responsible for that topic is responsible for accumulating and bringing everything forward. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have the by the ways during the meeting.
Scott, give me an idea of your meeting agenda ideas.
Well, ours isn't quite so formal. We don't go in with an agenda. I might go in with an agenda, but I don't present it to the staff up front. We go in, and I certainly have some things, and we have lots of time for open discussion and all the items that we want to review. But the one thing that we do consistently every time, well, there's a few things. We review the last meeting's notes, which was, to me, really important, because otherwise we are just having meetings for the sake of meetings. If we don't review last meeting and what we said we were going to do, then we are not effective at all, right? So did we follow up on what we said we were going to? It's probably 50%, but 50% better than what it would be without the meeting. So that's what I find important, is to review those notes. And then same things that was already discussed. We have the numbers, we have the tools and equipment, shop safety, and of course feedback from customers, both good and bad. Those we do every time.
I can imagine, guys and lady, that you could talk about procedural, safety, equipment, maintenance, customer feedback, frustrations, ideas, process improvements. Shall I go on?
Yeah.
Tristan, you obviously can't cover all of that, but do you make sure that some of these points become topics each and every week?
Sure, definitely. I mean, I think it's important that, like when everyone points out something that needs to be addressed so everybody can reach their goals, like Kim said, we have a written agenda and we follow that, and we have places for notes where we can put like things to look forward to next week, or things to fix this week or the next coming week. We make notes of that, and the next meeting, the week after, we kind of go over that and see how we did, if we actually did those changes. And like Scott said, it's not always 100%. It's always 50-50, or sometimes more than others, but that's the reality of it. But I think that it's important to have them weekly to kind of like hold everyone accountable and make those changes.
Okay, gang. I love where we're going with this, by the way. So you have an agenda. Talk to me, each of you, about setting clear expectations at the end of the meeting.
On our meeting sheet, we actually have a notation of who's responsible for following through with that particular topic or item or things that needs to be addressed, and what the deadline is. And then, so that is probably the most important thing, is know that somebody has been assigned a task or a duty or, a means to a solution, and when we expect to hear back. And it's not always the next meeting. It might be, a management meeting that needs to have something be done before the staff meeting on Wednesday. So that is kind of how the accountability is brought out. Is, I think if your name is written down and you have a date when it's done, you tend to be a little more solid to follow through with it. So that's kind of the follow through as far as that goes, that we implement. Sometimes things are a little more important than others, so sometimes you let things slide, but it's always important to come back and readdress those every time. So.
Clear expectations, Scott.
Well, yeah, hopefully you go in with a plan of where to go forward. Now, that's part of my agenda. I write down where I'd like to see things go, but inevitably when you start discussing it with the staff, they come up with lots of counterpoints or alternatives, and you hopefully document them and put it together and say, okay, we're going to go forward and give this a try for the next 2 weeks, and we'll reconvene at the next meeting and decide. Now, sometimes you don't even get through the day before you realize there's a flaw, and sometimes you can go a couple weeks and you get some feedback, and sometimes it just works and everything goes smoothly. And so there's your odd home run where what you're trying to put together actually worked, right? There always is some kind of plan, but sometimes it's like, let's gather feedback during the next 2 weeks and see how this works, because we don't know. To innovate, you have to throw a lot of stuff out there and see what sticks.
That's a great point. I love that. In order to innovate, you got to stick stuff up on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Tristan,
I love failures on the way to success.
Got it. Tristan, I loved what Kim said about clear expectations as far as assigning responsibilities. Are you doing that?
Yes, actually, that's I think that's the way to do it. I mean, when tasks are assigned, I think it's important everyone knows who's going to do those tasks. Because if nobody knows who's doing the task, they're just going to expect someone else is going to do it and not them, right? So it's definitely, I totally agree.
I think too, really, if we can expect people to do things and have expectations of them, but if they're not clear, then how can we hold them responsible?
That's right.
And I think that's probably the most important thing to the meetings, whatever type of meeting it is, whether it's the morning huddle. We have, and we were blessed to have one of those meetings this morning where it's like we have more work than we can handle today. So I need everybody, our morning huddle was, my expectation is I need everybody to focus, give me 110%, and I'm going to bring you lunch and I'm going to take care of you. And, and this is going to be a great week, especially when we get a look at our numbers next week. So today is the day, let's make it happen. And that's, that is, so to let them know what's expected of them is, I think, the most invaluable thing, what's expected of ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying a short, sweet, to the point, we got work to do meeting.
Yes, every morning, 8:01.
8:01. Expected to be there, standing tall.
Absolutely. Ready to, and as soon as we're done, they're ready to take the work orders handed to them and go forward. So, but that's every day.
So our tip number 3, everyone, we had down frequency. Of course, all of these tips are going to be in the show notes for this episode. So when this thing does get out and on the internet and repurposed, we always have a show notes page. You'll find all these tips there. And we talked a lot about this already. I think you all may have said, we have daily, weekly, there's monthly. And one of the tough things is that holidays and vacations interfere, and sometimes we can't get it all done. But I'd love you to share. In fact, why don't I just go around the room and say, Tristan, if it was a daily meeting, what would you expect to have? What kind of points in a daily meeting?
So in our daily meetings, it's kind of like a morning huddle, like Kim said. It's short. It's like 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And basically you just discuss what's coming in for that day, what parts needs to be ordered or what needs to be done, who needs to get picked up, dropped off, customer-wise, and things like that. So it's just a quick meeting to get everyone's mindset. We're here, we're ready to work, and let's get rolling pretty soon. So that's what we do on a daily basis. And actually, I kind of delegated this to my guys. I delegated to my service advisor and my lead tech. So the service advisor will have to have a leader role to do this for us.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So you don't necessarily have to be there for every meeting.
I don't have to be here. No.
Excellent. Kim, a weekly tactical meeting. You had mentioned that. What kind of things are covered in weekly meetings?
The management or the staff?
Both.
Both. Okay. So management, we talk. We do talk the numbers for the week prior and the goals for the week forthcoming. So that's why we hold those on Monday. We want to quickly address what happened last week and see what we need to tweak for the rest of the week. So definitely numbers. We're talking about how many cars we had at the ARO. We even take it down to how many. We break down each each repair order by value, the dollar value. So we know if we had 28 repair orders that are between $100 and $250, we had a lot of oil services and minor maintenance. And then on the opposite, we're looking at the bigger ticket. So we're looking at the how many or the types of jobs we had for the week prior, so that we know if we need to tweak. One of the biggest things that we look at is our margins. We're looking at our parts margins on a weekly basis. That way, instead of looking at them monthly, and it's kind of hard to go back and say, why did we have such a drop in our parts margins? And what was it? Well, we had, it's easier to go back last week and say, remember we had that hybrid battery, or we had some big engine job that the margins are lower. So we can nip those in the butt right away. So numbers are key. Tech productivity is talked about on Mondays. We're also talking about on the Monday meetings, the kind of just the overall feel of how things went and what can be changed for the week coming. The only thing that's really different on the Wednesday meetings is we're talking about tools, we're doing safety, we're talking about needs, and we talk about, I think we'll talk about this later, but the dirty mop water, and we'll talk about that later. But I think, okay. But we, so that is more of a team, kind of what are we doing, how do we do as a team instead of the specific numbers.
Scott, how about monthly strategic type meetings? Any ideas there?
We don't tend to do that type of meeting. We do watch our numbers every day, and in fact, our staff are paid on a hybrid type pay system that is a variety of wage and bonus, and so they're always incentivized to be paying attention to where we're going and what we're doing. So most of our meetings are not that type of meeting. They're more about production and about customer service and about what we're doing in terms of more of the physical side of the job. We certainly review the numbers, but the numbers are part of the everyday in our life. We start a fresh reset every Friday. So Friday's our push to get it done, and we know we're paying attention to them all the time.
I like what you just said. Friday's the reset.
Yeah.
The week's behind us. The week's behind us. Nothing you can do about it, right?
Yeah, a bad week doesn't ruin your month.
Mm-hmm.
Right, got it. Mm-hmm. Hey, let me offer a couple of ideas for strategic monthly meetings. Brainstorming, decide on critical issues that will affect the company long term. And how about a quarterly off-site review? Maybe that's something in the offings. Review your strategy, the competitive landscape, industry trends, key people, and team development. So there's a...
And Carm, Rob and I do that as, I think I shared with you, we have spousal meetings. We do those off-site, and honestly, some of our best spousal meetings are when we're coming back from either a shop review with our Worldpac Smart Group, or coming back from an expo or some kind of a training. So a lot of our spousal meetings are best served right after one of those kind of events. We're excited and such, and we do a lot of that, either that or at the end of an evening with a glass of cab and permission to talk about work. So
and permission, yes, I know. Go to listen to Kim's episode. It was great. Episode 113. We talked a lot about how that works for you and Rob. Well, okay. Let's get into some tactics, as far as meetings, everyone. Let's go to our tip number 4. Share the wealth. Don't hog the meeting, and don't let others hog the meeting. Who wants to chime in on that?
I think that's the hardest one. And I just did it. I always want to just talk. I want to share. I want to interject. And that's the hardest one for me to control myself, and my staff will admit that. So I'm going to move on and let somebody else answer that.
Well, I admit it. Yeah.
So, you know what, like I try to do like a 70-30 rule. Like I'd probably talk 30% of the time, and 70% of the time everyone talks. And the best way I think that we get that out, that I get it out, is really ask the questions. In the beginning, before we start a meeting, and this is a weekly meeting, like before we start a meeting, we have this game, and I got this from my coaching group that my coach kind of like told me about. This called Chat Pack. Basically, it's a case of cards with a bunch of different questions, and everyone pulls one out and answer those questions. It's just kind of like breaking the ice, right? Mm-hmm. To get everybody in the mood of speaking. So if they spoke at the beginning of the meeting, it's a lot easier for them to speak throughout the meeting, rather than they sit down and someone's always talking and they never get a chance to talk, right? Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like a warm up. And after that, I just ask a lot of questions. That helps a lot.
So you're a curious kind of guy, Tristan.
You could say that, yes. I mean, it's, for example, if I ask one question to to a tech, right? I'd probably ask the same question, and after he answers that question and explains his side, I would ask another tech and say, what do you think about that? What's your take on that?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So if I go to a meeting with you, you expect me to contribute.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if you're not contributing, even if you don't expect it, I'll ask the questions and you're going to have to answer.
You expect me to contribute no matter what. You're going to keep probably asking the same question over and over again until I give you an answer.
Give me something. Yes, definitely.
And then slowly I'll learn that Tristan really cares about my input.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Definitely. I love the strategy. It's a great strategy. Scott, what about you? How's it work to get your people engaged, or are you talking too much?
Maybe. I think that everybody is different. So I have some staff that contribute a lot, like they just have lots of stuff that they're ready to list off. Some take notes, and some just kind of let it go through. And everybody's expectations are a little bit different there, and everybody, to some people, I hope it's more than just a job, but it's some of them are just not that. It's not. Some people can just let things go and take it as it is, and other people want to change the world. So you get a mixture from every single employee. They give different amounts of input on what they want to give, and that's all fine with me. I think they talk a lot throughout the weeks, and I think that sometimes that conversation turns into the one person becoming the spokesperson and bringing it all up, even though it might have been somebody else's idea first. But we don't try and intentionally assign each person time to the meeting. We just let it all come out naturally.
And to kind of organically make everybody be involved, we actually shared the job duties for each meeting, especially for our staff meeting. So that way it's not always me presenting or going down the agenda and keeping things moving. We've actually given everybody job duties, and it rotates. So our service advisor Lori may come in one day and she's the note taker, and our C tech Levi might be the presenter, and so it requires them to participate in the meetings, and that way they can't sit back quietly and not say much. And I get to choose who is doing which duty, which is kind of fun, because if I think that somebody has more to say about a particular topic, I might let them be the note taker. If they tend to talk too much, they might be the note taker more.
Well, you're steering the meeting so that there's extreme value, and you're also developing your people and engaging them at the same time.
Correct. Empowering them.
Empowering them. Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Hey, don't forget, everyone, Jasper Engines and Transmissions brings us the Academy. In addition to the strict quality remanufacturing steps they take at Jasper, they can actually improve a drivetrain's component original design so that it runs longer and better than when it was new. Check out their featured engine and transmission pages at jasperengines.com. So what I'm getting from this, and we're not quite done yet, we got some more to go, is would your businesses be as successful as they are if you weren't having meetings?
No.
Wow. Well, then this needs to be a hot ticket here for the aftermarket to listen to this and say this is such a simple little tactic to strengthen a business and to engage your people. Okay. Go ahead, Kim.
I think the biggest, when you said that, my head just shook no, kind of, or reactively. I think the meetings is a time for the team members to buy in, to make change, to move change forward. Whether it's buying in about doing digital inspections, or it gives an opportunity for topics that are being discussed, thoughts that we have as in management, changes we want to make, to actually learn about them, number one, but also to buy in. And if you're sitting in a room with, we have usually about 10 people in our meetings every week. When you're sitting in a room with 10 people and you're nodding your head saying that, let's do, I agree, digital inspections are the way to go, and you're nodding their head yes, you sat in a meeting and you nodded, you were in agreement, you bought in. And so therefore, when we come back and we're readdressing why aren't the, and why are digital inspections not being performed on every vehicle? Well, it's a little bit hard, it's a little bit this, but you know what, you wanted this just as much as we did. So it's an opportunity for that to come forward during meetings, and that's just an example. It's a very minor example. One of the things that we didn't talk about earlier too is training and safety. That has got to be at every single meeting, and that's something that is on my list that I didn't mention earlier.
Good, thank you so much. I'm excited to see what you people are doing to bring, when I thought about what you just said about shaking their head, it's almost like going around the room and saying, okay, put that vote down. That was a yes. That was a yes. Mm-hmm. And now you got minutes.
Yes,
you've actually got minutes. Okay, we've covered a lot of these. Great. Thank you so much. Set the length of the meeting. Talk about that.
Well, you definitely could go too long, and we tend to do hours over lunch and try and get it done in an hour and 15 minutes. Too much time will just bog you down, and I try and do them daytime during lunch because I think we have to respect our staff's time a lot and not try and ask them to come in early or stay late or do after regular hours stuff too often. So we do ours during the day, and an hour and 15 minutes is about all we can spare. So we try and set that and go. They do go overtime once in a while, for sure.
And that's every 2 weeks, Scott?
Yes.
Every 2 weeks for about an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah. What happens if a customer comes in or the phone's ringing?
Yeah, that's one that I forgot to put down. I was going to send you that email this morning. Hopefully having someone there to answer the phone is going to be something that you have. Answer the phone and get the door. I've thought about putting the phones on hold. I'd like to in some ways, but we don't do it. Maybe one day. The meetings are really important. I think that uninterrupted is important, but business goes on and people call and show up when they do, and I don't tend to turn them away either.
I understand.
If I can make a recommendation, just a thought for those that are listening. One of the things that Rob really pushed to implement, and I wasn't so sure for the longest time, is probably the best thing that we ever did. And that is we actually have an offsite answering service with a live person that we can forward our calls for those lunch meetings. When they call in, and honestly, they're there 24/7. When we're not here and we're not available, they're speaking to a human. So if it's somebody that's calling in during lunch and they get the answering service, the service writer and myself are both getting emails of those calls that are coming immediately. So if it's something we need to handle as an emergency, we can step away. But it's just an idea as far as make it that way the meeting stays focused. You're not losing concentration because you know that phone's ringing and nobody's going to answer it. And also our customers are still being taken care of at the same time.
That's a great tip.
Right. You know what we do in our shop is we do it before we open. So our daily meetings happens before we actually open. Our weekly meetings are longer, so they're about 30 to 40 minutes. So the guys have to come in early on Monday, to do the meetings before we open. And then on our monthly meetings, that I schedule that for about an hour, and that's off-site. We go out, we have dinner. It's something to look forward to, so they can pick a restaurant. Like everyone can agree on a restaurant they want to go to. I pick up the tab, and everyone has a good time. But we try to keep that within an hour. But that's after work, so it doesn't interfere with work schedule.
And that is, Scott, I loved what you said, that you didn't want it to interfere with anyone's, personal life. I get that. I respect that, Tristan, but you've got your team, they're okay with coming in early and doing the evening. Sure,
definitely. And I think the one we have trouble with is the monthly meeting, because nobody wants to stay after hours, and have dinner. But if you let them pick the place and I'm picking up the tab, it makes it a lot easier,
okay,
kind of like make a
all right, okay, all right, we'll go to that famous steakhouse, I guess. Okay, but they end up, they're engaged, they're involved, so that they end up going. But occasionally someone can't make it because they've got commitments, right?
Yes, and what we do with the monthly meetings, we schedule around that.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that everyone goes.
Okay.
You know, so it'll work because we have a small team. Right now we have 3 techs, 1 advisor, and me. So there's only 5 of us. I mean, how hard is it to get a schedule going with 5 people? You know, I understand if you have like 10 people, 15. I don't know, like maybe that's harder, but for 5 people, I think it's a lot easier.
Scott, you had a great talking point about meals, about the leader of the meeting should eat first. I love that.
Well, that's actually, I'm a complete failure at that. So that's why I brought it up. It's like, this has got to change. So yes, I mean, what I did, I buy lunch. So when we do have these meetings at lunchtime, I buy the lunch. We do ask the staff, let them pick where they want to go within reason. It's pretty good. Jackie, my wife, will usually go and pick it up. Sometimes we'll call someone that delivers. And I find that 1 or 2 things happen. If I try to eat at the same time, then yeah, we waste half an hour and don't get anything done. Or I wait till the end, my food's cold or there's none left. So I brought this up because after the last meeting, I decided this has to change. And so I'm going to start a new habit. And I think that one is important though, because everybody's time is precious. And because it's daytime, business has to get back. We need to make better use of my time by eating first so I can start the meeting and get things rolling while they can sit and absorb while eating. And you got a captive audience when they're eating.
I think, and how our hour is spent is basically 12:31, and I always pick the 1, and for whatever reason, but 12:31, phones have to go down upside down, and we are talking, we're enjoying each other's company because we are a family, and we are a very, very tight-knit group of people. We're together a lot of hours every week. So we like that time every week that we sit down and have a meal. And at 12:31, phones go down, meeting gets done, our meeting begins, and I think we're able to do that because we do stay to the agenda, we stay focused, we're not being interrupted by the phones, or I think the biggest interruption we might have is a part delivery during lunch, but that is, so that first half hour, we look forward to just the camaraderie and hanging out, and I think that's really important.
Gang, let me ask you, how much preparation goes into making your meeting happen?
Well, I'll speak up. I don't honestly do a lot. I review the last meeting's notes, and every day I have my meeting book where my notes go, and throughout the week, throughout the days, anytime I see something that I think needs to be brought up, I just scribble it down so it's there ready for me when the meeting starts, the following week or whenever it might be. So I don't find that it needs a lot of preparation. I'm not trying to make a corporate culture out of my business where we've got strict agendas and a process for every detail of the meeting. I believe that we should have a process for many details within the business. Absolutely a huge believer, but the meeting, I like to have it more of a casual and see where it flows kind of thing, because I think I discover more by being less formal and less strict about it.
Got it. Kim, do you prepare a lot?
Just the opposite. So I do a couple things I do on Monday mornings. I know my focus for that morning is that I'm going to pull all my numbers and get them together for the week before. So that takes me a fair amount of time, pulling out tech productivity, all the numbers. In addition, we utilize it's a Google program called Google Keep, and it is like Post-it notes. They're Google-based Post-it notes that I have, and I have one that's a staff meeting, one that's a management meeting, and I'm looking at them right now, and one that's morning huddle. It's a Post-it note that you can share through Google Keep with other team members. So for instance, the morning huddle, I have access to it, Rob has access to it, and Tanner, my lead tech has access. So anytime we think of something, we can put it on that Google Keep, and it shows as a bullet point of something that somebody wants to talk about. Same with the staff meeting. I have it, Rob has it, Tanner has it, and Lori has it. So, there's certain people that have access to these Post-its. So when I'm doing the agenda, I'm looking at those Post-its or the keep notes and bringing those items that need to be discussed come in. So that is kind of my organization. And you know, and that also has like to-do notes and things we need, and so everything has a note that's shared. So I have to be organized or I fall apart.
Thanks for that. You do a lot of prep, Tristan?
Not a lot, and fortunately, my system is pretty good that all the numbers are there. It's one easy printout.
Mm-hmm.
We have a weekly agenda that I've already printed out. It's on a folder, and I have a bunch of different copies. So weekly, the guys just need to pull one out and fill the numbers in. Go to this system and fill the numbers in, and then we can start our meeting. On the monthly, though, that's when I kind of like look over. It takes me a little bit more time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, but there's not a lot of preparation that goes into it, you know, and I don't think that should be a hindrance for anyone to have a meeting.
I keep hearing one constant theme. The numbers. Do we ever talk about customers, reviews, and more importantly, the culture of the company?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's important to talk about the reviews or the challenges that happen that week. There's always mishaps. Every shop has that. There's always comebacks that the advisors and the techs were able to take care of, and the customer ended up happy and leaving a 5-star review.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that we want to talk about. And if there are other customers that have a bad experience, we want to talk about that too. So yeah, definitely, it's important.
I think it's really important to go over the reviews because there's certain things on that people will touch on that they appreciate that lets our team members know. And so, for instance, a lot of ours right now is, I got my car worked on, and it even, I picked it up and it was practically detailed and clean when I picked it up. So that's out there for the public to see, and that reminds our car detailers, our guys that are here washing cars. That reminds them that their job, what they do, is just as important to the shop, not just the reputation of the shop, what the customers appreciate. Honestly, I think the customers like the car washes more than they like getting their car fixed because it's tangible. It's something they don't have to go do later. And so for the car washers or the detail guys to get feedback like that is invaluable. And when our customer service rep is getting a comment like Jan driving me to work was like driving to work with a longtime friend, and we thoroughly enjoyed our time. Well, that just made her day. And so by reading the reviews and reading them verbatim, what people say, I think is so important and definitely encouraging to the team as a whole. And if they're bad, read them verbatim because they need to know exactly what the customers are feeling and what they heard and what they felt and what they experienced. And so I think it's probably the most highlighted, the most encouraging and most sought after thing of the entire meeting is honestly the reviews.
Yeah, absolutely. We review, what comes through, the Google reviews, the feedback emails, and such like that. And yeah, also the successes and the failures. They're just learning opportunities. So we review everything that we have and try and give. Part of any good meeting should be, praising what what we have succeeded on during the past 2 weeks, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Kim, you wanted to talk about the dirty mop water.
The dirty mop water has come around we've been doing this for probably since I started full time, so almost 7 years with the shop. And basically, we used to have a mop closet that the mop, the water just stood there, and if it stands there, it gets stagnant. If it's getting stagnant, it stinks. Nobody wants to deal with it. It's mucky, it's murky, it's gross. And so what we, at the end of every meeting, we try to give an opportunity for, you know, basically let out the dirty mop water. And that's basically anything that you're feeling that you don't know, or you don't know when is the appropriate time to talk about, whether it's, and I don't have a Joe, so I'm going to say Joe. Joe plays this, you know, stupid music so loud I can't stand it. Or, you know, Kim, when you come out and you interrupt me, and when I'm in the middle of, you know, flashing and, you know, reflashing a vehicle, you got to pay attention what we're doing when you're interrupting us, whatever that is. It's opportunity for somebody to, and it because we are a family, it's an opportunity for somebody to air what just really drives them crazy. And it's an opportunity for that to be exposed. But the most important thing is when we're letting out the dirty mop water is that nobody can take it personal unless it is personal. If it affects you, if you feel conviction, or if you took it personal, then you need to figure out, you need to change what you're doing because it's hurting somebody else. So it's just it's a great opportunity for in an open atmosphere for somebody to say something and know that they're going to be safe by saying it. Now, we may have a meeting afterwards if it, you know, like, I can't, you know, let me tell you about Joe's music is bad, but let me, you know, maybe you turning it up louder than his is not helping the situation or whatever. But it's just a great freedom, a time of freedom to be honest and not get, you know, nobody can get their feelings hurt. So that's forbidden. So that's huge. It's been great for us.
Hang on, guys, because I do want to get your opinion on that. A new vehicle may look and smell nice, but they've come with seemingly endless monthly payments, higher license fees, and higher insurance premiums. Here's the better solution. Remanufacture components from Jasper mean a new lease on life to a trusted old friend. You guys encourage venting in your meetings, Scott and Tristan?
Here's the thing about venting. I think it's not everyone wants to offend other people, right? Like I'm type of person who wouldn't vent out in anger, and I'd probably say it in a different way. But other guys may vent out in anger, and once they vent out in anger, that person's that directed to might vent out in anger, and it might do a chain reaction, right? So I would nip it in the bud because I don't want that to be the energy for the meeting. But if there's something that needs to be discussed, I will put those people aside and talk to them privately. Yeah.
There is a word constructive in there.
Mm-hmm.
You could always say,
sure,
you know, respectful of each other. But I get your point, Scott.
Yeah.
Sure. And as discussed earlier, that's the whole reason our meetings started probably 13, 14 years ago. It was because somebody had a vent that they didn't have a chance, or they felt they didn't have a chance to get off their chest earlier. So I think if you have these meetings on a frequent basis, they know they're going to have an opportunity to discuss these things. They don't build up to the point where it's that much of a vent, but sometimes it might be, but I don't think our meetings ever have any kind of negative vibe to them at all. The staff are all adults. They're very mature. They're putting it forward because they believe it needs to be done and that it will be better because of it. So the discussions have to take place. Some are better than others. But without that opportunity, things have a chance to build up, and that's always worse. Communication is critically important to making this work for us. We're a team that has to be firing on all cylinders to work. And so, sure, you can call it event, but mostly it's just discussion.
Yeah.
Discussion. When they may get that way, I think that quite often the guys will bring up a point for their coworkers so that it doesn't feel like they are going too strongly on one thing or another. So if somebody has a real problem with something, quite often somebody else will bring it up at the meeting to allow an easier entrance. That's good too.
Yeah.
And honestly, when they're sitting there with a full belly and they're sitting at a table and they've just had 30 minutes of chatting, it is a time to vent, but it's not reactive venting. If they're going to speak out at that point, they've actually thought about or should have thought about what they're going to say. But the key thing is I always say, don't take it personal unless it's personal. And that's probably the biggest thing is, if it's, so that's the reason we do that at the meeting is because they're on the spot, and I think they're gonna handle it better than if they're out in the middle of the shop.
You know, based on a really strong culture in the business, one that's focused on the customer and working to always have constant improvement and embrace change, yeah, venting shouldn't, if the culture is right, ever be that pointed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my feeling. And obviously, you as the CEO of the business need to make sure that it's constructive. And if it's starting to go too far one way or the other, you'd almost need to say, listen, let's take this offline, but don't make the meeting end up with any kind of negativity at all. Look at I think we've done a great service to the industry. My common denominator here is that you all do meetings, you're successful businesses, you've all started meetings for your own in particular reasons. Scott, because you didn't realize that the team was, and you said we better talk. Kim, looks to me that you're continuing your successful trend by the engagement of your people. And Tristan, I think you just have a great, fun place to work at, and I would love to come and turn wrenches for you.
Sure,
but I don't know how. So let's go around the room. Give me a 1-minute quick summary to encourage anyone who's not having meetings to have them. I'll start with you, Scott.
Sure. Well, I didn't want to have them at first because I just thought they were too much of this big corporation culture thing that wasn't for a small business. And that is, at that time, we only had like 5 of us. I didn't think it was something that was required. And I've never been in the big business where we had them either. So I discovered just how important they were. Small business, big business, you got to communicate, and the meeting's just a way to do it. And it's as simple as that. Communicate and do it on a frequent basis so that things don't have a chance to ever get too far gone. And it's really been a huge eye-opener for me.
Thank you so much. Tristan?
For those who aren't having any meetings, I strongly suggest it. If you have a problem, if you're not doing meetings because of the people in your team doesn't want to do meetings, I think it's all about changing their mindset and letting them know that the meeting is for them to be successful, not just to have a meeting. Like one of the guys, like I had to explain to him, like, hey, I always have to tell him, like, I want you to hit your goals. I want you to get a bonus. I want everyone to hit their goals, and the only way we can do that is through teamwork. And the only way we can have teamwork is, communication. And everyone needs to communicate. And the way we can communicate is to have these meetings. So, and on one day, once they understand that, I think it's a lot easier for them to buy in, for them to go to these meetings. And I think that's ultimately going to be a successful meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great point. They look forward to them, I bet.
Sure. Yeah.
Kim, the last word.
Well, I think when we started having the meetings is during a time that we were in the mode of changing our business to where it is now. So I think the meetings are the time to open communication lines with your employees, plan, and all those things that we've already talked about. So I don't want to beat all that up, but I honestly feel like that by creating that culture that we care enough that we want to hear from our employees, by creating the culture that we want our employees to have accountability, by creating a culture that we want to be transparent on what we're doing how we're doing as a business and what we're doing in the future. And I think it's really about creating the culture. And when you create that culture, you're going to build that trust, and there's going to be a trust that's going to be reciprocal. The trust from the team members to the owners, and from the owners back to the team members. I think the meetings are the biggest, probably the most important thing. If you want to change your business in any way, the first thing you have to do is start having meetings, because then you have accountability in all directions. So I cannot strive enough, and it was probably the hardest thing to implement on a regular basis, because there was always some reason to find an excuse on why today just didn't work, or I don't have the numbers yet, or whatever. I think the meetings are the number one, first and foremost things you have to do if you want to change your business in any capacity. And everything else can follow, because when you have a meeting, then you have to have accountability. You have to have things that you're accountable for, or things you're accountable to. So it just kind of dominoes into a bigger picture, and just have one, and then have another, and then have one more, and then pretty soon it'll be a habit. And then when you don't have a meeting, it's weird. It's really, really weird. So I encourage it for everybody. Absolutely.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it. From Kim Auernheimer from Brentwood, Tennessee. Scott Waddle, Langley, British Columbia, way up there. 3 hours behind me. And, of course, Tristan Realabit from Westmont, Illinois. Thank you so much for your great contributions to another great Town Hall Academy.